Right now, 10, our first stretch of sticky summer weather.
I'll talk about the watches and warnings already in place and how the heat will impact weekend storms.
While other communities focus on finding their footing.
High water has shut down highways and athletic fields here in southeastern Minnesota. How residents are dealing with all of this water.
A medical helicopter goes down in central Minnesota, killing 2 people and injuring a third. How one husband is remembering his wife.
And a warning about a Twin Cities Walmart. Why you'll want to check the produce.
Now, from Minnesota's most watched station, this is WCCO-4 News.
Temperatures are starting to sizzle ahead of a heat wave this weekend. Hi, everyone. It was hot today, but it's going to be even hotter tomorrow.
Yeah, and at times it could be dangerous. When it gets really hot outside, a great place to be is near the water. Whether that is boating on White Bear Lake or playing in a local splash pad, you'll want to find ways to keep cool. Mike Augustyniak is with us tonight. So, Mike, this is our first heat wave of the summer.
Yeah, and it's been about a year since we've had temperatures this hot for this long. So we need to reacquaint ourselves with all those rules. If you're going to be outside tomorrow or Sunday afternoon, you need to find some shade if you can and stay hydrated. 80 is where we stand right now in the Twin Cities. This is pretty comfortable compared to where we'll be at this time tomorrow night. In fact, so too are these overnight lows. Coming up tonight, the most comfortable sleeping weather we'll have for the next few nights will happen tonight. We'll still wake up tomorrow morning near 70 in the Twin Cities, and there'll be some 50s around northern Wisconsin, up in Cabin Country, and central and northern Minnesota, feeling relatively more comfortable. Then tomorrow, between 10 a.m. and 10 p.m., west and southwest of the Twin Cities, that's a heat advisory. It will feel like 100 degrees there, but the heat will break tomorrow evening. It's the Metro Core, all the red shaded counties, that all day Saturday night into Sunday, that heat will make it difficult for those that are particularly susceptible to it, so that's why there's an excessive heat watch in effect. And even though the heat will break into next week, the humidity won't, and that will have a big impact on storms and flooding. We will talk about that in a few minutes.
All right, we'll see you then. Thank you.
From heat to high water, communities in southern Minnesota are trying to stay afloat after several inches of rain fell in a short time. Roads and neighborhoods were flooded in Rochester. And check out what happened in nearby Olmsted County. A herd of cattle was swept away. This video shows the water pushing the cows downstream. Neighbors started calling farmer Mark Eustace when they saw the animals in the river. He says around 27 cows and 30 calves went missing.
This is a freak thing that I've never seen happen this late in June, and you know, I don't know how you'd prepare for it. Cattle have been down here for over 100 years, and usually there's always high ground where they can go to if anything like this happens, but this is pretty unique.
Amazingly, some of those cows survived. These are photos of part of the herd gathering near a home downstream. Another area hit by the rising water is Pine Island. Highway 52 had to be shut down in that area due to flooding. Mary McGuire went to southeastern Minnesota today and spoke with one resident who will be watching the river closely.
We had a trampoline, swing set, everything down there, and the swing set is long gone.
Major flooding in Jamie Dessner's backyard has made her Pine Island home the waterfront property she never asked for. It took just 30 minutes for the river to swallow up every blade of grass in her backyard.
Every few minutes I was looking out the window just hoping that it wouldn't move any further, but it kept coming, and then you see all the sandbaggers come and it makes you nervous.
Surprisingly, her home isn't located on a floodplain. All she can do now is monitor the forecast and cross her fingers.
We're just hoping we don't get any more rain, and we'll have a yard left when it goes down.
Just a stone's throw away, there's a similar soggy scene. The water is so high here in Pine Island that it's covering a portion of this road near the high school. On one side, you can see the athletic fields. They are covered in several feet of floodwater. And on the other side, you have the golf course. That is also closed due to flooding. The water is so high at the high school, it's covering fences, soccer goals, and bleachers. The cause of this soaking mess is the middle fork of the Zumbro River, which runs right through the town. According to the National Weather Service, it reached major flood stage around noon on Friday, leaving those who call here home drenched. Reporting in Pine Island, Mary McGuire, WCCO-4 News.
According to MnDOT, Highway 52 could be closed until 6 on Sunday morning, depending on how fast the water recedes.
St. Paul police are investigating a deadly shooting. It happened in the 1000 block of Suburban Avenue just east of Mounds Park. Very little information has been released. We do expect to learn more from investigators at some point tonight. A man is remembering his wife after she died in a helicopter crash early this morning. A North Memorial medical chopper went down at the Brainerd Regional Airport around 1 this morning. The pilot and nurse Deb Schott were killed. Another employee was rushed to the hospital in severe but stable condition. There was no patient on board at the time. Schott's husband tells us that Deb spent much of her life helping others.
She loved her job for North Air, and she also works at Waconia Emergency Room. So she's been a nurse for many years. It's a 24-hour shift, and so they stay there. And then, so yeah, she was supposed to come home 7 o'clock this morning.
Investigators are trying to figure out what caused the crash.
Construction on 3 major interstates will make getting around the Twin Cities difficult this weekend. MnDOT closed both directions of 35W between downtown Minneapolis and the crosstown just about 5 minutes ago. Drivers in St. Paul will have to navigate around a 4-mile closure on westbound I-94 and a complete closure on 694 between Shoreview and Arden Hills. A reminder for fans going to tomorrow's Minnesota United soccer game, that closure on 94 could greatly impact your drive time. For ways to map out a new route, you can head to WCCO.com.
The Minnesota Department of Agriculture says if you have recently bought fresh, unpackaged produce from the Andover Walmart, throw it away. The department issued a consumer advisory today after a chemical incident on Saturday night. The Walmart store in question is on Bunker Lane Boulevard Northwest. The advisory says anyone who bought produce between Sunday morning and Wednesday night should get rid of it. The impacted food in the store has been thrown away. What's for sale now is safe.
A Minneapolis church lost its affiliation today over its support of LGBTQ worshipers. First Covenant Church in downtown Minneapolis was a part of the Evangelical Covenant Church. Denomination leaders in Omaha voted today to oust the church and its pastor, Dan Collison. The vote happened because of First Covenant support for 2 lesbian members who are married. The church says it is deeply grieved by the decision, but will continue welcoming anyone who wants to worship. Collison will continue to be the lead pastor.
The U.S. Senate failed to pass an amendment today regarding airstrikes against Iran. That amendment would have required President Donald Trump to ask for congressional approval before ordering military strikes. The vote came 1 week after the president called off a retaliatory strike after Iran shot down a U.S. drone.
Meanwhile, President Trump is in Japan for the G20 Economic Summit, which runs through tomorrow. It's an opportunity to talk about economic ties between countries. But as Jennifer Merrily reports, it's often the private meetings that turn out to be the most important.
President Trump shared a lighthearted moment about election interference during his meeting Friday with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The 2 leaders appeared to enjoy the moment, but the White House insists election interference isn't being taken lightly.
This administration has taken election meddling seriously. In fact, it's literally been hundreds of millions of dollars that we've provided to states to help secure the election process.
President Trump will also be focused on trade when he has his meeting with China's president Friday night.
I think it'll be productive, and who knows, but I think it'll be productive. At a minimum, it will be productive. We'll see what happens and what comes out of it.
The U.S. has already slapped China with a 25% tariff on $250 billion worth of Chinese-made goods. And President Trump has said he will decide after the summit whether he will move forward with the same tariff on an additional $300 billion worth of imports. Trade talks with China broke down in May, but China's foreign ministry is now hoping Washington can meet the country halfway to end the trade disputes between the 2 nations. Jennifer Merrily, WCCO 4 News.
In addition to trade, President Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping are expected to talk about North Korea. Chinese leaders met with North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un prior to the G20 summit. Well, as you heard earlier, the heat's going to be intense this weekend.
But it is the humidity that will feel unbearable. What is humidity and where does it come from? We break it down in Good Question.